Hi there, and welcome to Strings to Your Bow. I'm Chloe Weatherhead, your host and the proud owner of Andiamo Business Assistants. This is the podcast where we dive into the personal stories behind professional success. Each week, we explore how our guests have turned life's experiences into unique skills, or even superpowers, that drive their businesses forward. Today, I'm thrilled to have Anisa Lewis with me. In 2016, Anisa founded Positive Parenting Coaching with a mission to empower parents and transform the lives of families facing stress, anxiety, or the everyday challenges of parenting. Whether she's working one-to-one, with groups, or through corporate programs, Anisa is passionate about creating positive change for parents and children alike. Anisa, it's so great to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Let's start by getting to know you a little bit better. Do you want to give us a little bit about your background, some key personal experiences, and how's that got you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm so excited to be here. So yeah, my name is Anisa Lewis. I'm a positive parenting coach. My background is education and teaching. So I've been doing that for 25 years. I'm like, gosh, it makes me feel really old thinking about it when we actually put it into numbers. But so yeah, and early years is my specialism. However, I got to the point in my career where I was on the senior leadership team and I was burnt out. Let's face it, absolutely and completely burnt out. I soul searched about what I wanted to do. And then, as I say, about 9 years ago, I handed in my resignation and I went, that's it, not doing it anymore. And I started my business, Positive Parenting. And that was sort of like a crucial life moment for me because I was raising my daughter, who's now 16, and at the time she was 7 or 8. I was raising her at my desk. My husband works for the emergency services, and at the time when we were living in London, he worked across town from where we lived. So it wasn't really a life. And so that, I guess, really spurred me to do some retraining, to channel my passions into helping individuals and families and children. And to make a really grand statement to sort of bring about multi-generational change. And so I retrained to be a coach and did lots of other things as well. And then we moved our family from London up to West Yorkshire and haven't looked back really. So yeah, that's sort of a very tiny bit about me in a nutshell, but I'm sure more will come out as we keep chatting.
Okay, so what prompted the change from London to West Yorkshire? How did you choose West Yorkshire?
Well, we quite like change in our family, and we like embracing it. But we also recognise that you have to go where loved ones are, or where you're not just plonked in the middle of nowhere. And so we looked at it. So I'm an Aussie. Well, I was brought up in, part of my existence was in Perth in Western Australia, my formative years when I was a teenager. So we explored going back there. But quite frankly, it's too hot and I don't want to go back. So I don't mind visiting, but it's too hot to function on a day-to-day basis because where I live is very dry heat, and 40 plus days are the norm across the spring and the summer. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not interested. So anyway, so we looked at a map of England and we went, right, we know people here, we know people there, we know people here. Where are we happy to live? Okay, cross that one off the list. Oh, no, we really like that one. And then we literally looked for doors to open. And my husband was recruited by the West Yorkshire Police. He now actually works for North Yorkshire Police, but that's a minor detail. And that was the start of the journey north. So, yeah, it was all about chance. And, well, not chance because we facilitated the process, but it was very much about looking for doors to open and trusting that that would be the right path for us and our family.
Yeah, and you mentioned then that you like change in your family. So how does that sort of, do we say passion for change, acceptance of change? I don't know how you want me to describe it. How does that translate into your approach to your business as well? That must cross over into your business and your approach to how you run your business as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to say probably my daughter's adaptation to change is not quite as passionate as mine, but it's fine, we go along with it, and I kind of dragged my husband along to enjoy change. But I guess with the ebbs and flows of running your own business, with being your own boss and all that kind of stuff, you have to be adaptable to change. You have to go with the flow. You have to say, okay, that worked really well in 2022. Is it going to work well for me and my family and what I want to do and create in 2024? Possibly. That's great. Don't change it. You know, if it's not broke, don't change it. But actually, I'm always seeking for excellence. I'm seeking to find a new skill that might help the people that I work with, or just to feed my own knowledge. And so I think change comes for me with flexibility. And so I guess that's where you take on the ebbs and flows of what comes to you, and you have to do that as a business owner, because you know, you'll know yourself, no 2 days are quite the same. And when you predict something is going to go really well, it then flops and you think, oh, okay, right, why? What did I have to do to amend that or tweak that? Or is it the product? Is it me? Was it my marketing? Was it whatever it was? And then you just have to move with the times. So, and also I guess, you know, doing the work we do as small business owners, you're very much feeding off your clients and what they want and the needs within the community. And, you know, helping families navigate through the COVID years is very different to the work I'm doing now. And so you have to go with change. But yeah, I've just, what I was mulling over in my head there, which is why I went a bit silent and then I came back, is actually I'm about creating systems which allow for change. So systems as in, you know, just, you know, down to your business as usual, what has to happen, but then what can you tweak and what can you change and all the rest of it. Because my job just before I left teaching was a head of operations job. So that's what I did. I organized systems and I was communication key person and all that kind of stuff. And I feel that's fed really nicely into the job that I do now. It's set me up for success.
So tell me a little bit more about that, systems, because I've got an operational background as well. So I probably hear that and go, oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But for people who haven't got that background, what do you mean by creating systems to facilitate the flow of change?
I guess for me, it was about creating sort of like online platforms where I could feed in my newsletter group, for example. And so I've got an online platform where I put in email addresses so that then I can send out a weekly email. It's having an online calendar so that it didn't require me to do all of the inputting of everybody's details and all the rest of it. They could actually do part of that process themselves, which just it helps me look more efficient, but it's better for the experience of the user as well. And I think, you know, I touched on business as usual, but it's things like I run a weekly, gosh, that would kill me off. No, a monthly, the organization that goes into it, that's what I meant by that. I do a monthly free parenting clinic for parents and carers on different parenting themes. And that just runs like clockwork now, because I've got the imagery I need. I've got the dates in my calendar. I've got the calendar that inboards the people. So those kind of systems make my life easier so that I can do what I'm really passionate about, which is working with the families that I work with.
Yeah. And have you brought any other sort of previous experience or personal values into your business? Have you applied any other experiences or values to how you run your business, and how have you found that that's helped you and your customers?
Oh, good question. I am quite literally passionate about knowing what your values are. You know, I'm passionate about quite a lot of stuff. You'll probably find out this through the course of this conversation. But actually, I think I went on my own journey, I think, as probably many people did, you know, faced with COVID, faced with asking to be stayed at home, facing to navigate changing your business so you could all stay afloat and all the rest of it. And over that course, I really dove into what my values are, what I stood for, coming out of, I was the deputy head of quite an exclusive private school down in Surrey. And then I moved up here to running my own business, and sort of like that healing that had to go on through the process and that of change meant that I had to dig down into my values. And I think one of my values was, you know, family is really important to me, but my top value is actually freedom. So it's freedom to make my own decisions, freedom to lead the way I want to lead, freedom to choose what I do with my day, if that's what I choose to do. And actually, so that was really interesting for me. Once I sort of got things like freedom, family, that I want things to be easy, not because you don't have to put the work in, but the end result of putting in a bit of work means that things get a little bit easier for you. So all of these
Yeah.
are part of my values. And, you know, creativity lights me up. And you sort of think, well, how can you get creativity into your business? But that's about the social media posts and thinking how you can write things that are going to appeal to people in blogs, or I don't know, how your imagery that you use and all that kind of stuff. So I think by getting to know what my values were, absolutely and completely infiltrated my business and who I am as a person, because actually it came like a bit of a pecking order. So for example, if I was to be offered a teaching job now, I wouldn't go back to the classroom. I take my hat off to teachers. I think they do an absolutely amazing job with the circumstances that they are facing at this moment, but I wouldn't do it. But for example, if I was asked to go back into a teaching job, I would now go to my values and say, okay, how does that support my family? Okay, well, financially it probably does support my family more than the insecurity of being a small business owner and never quite knowing where your money's coming from. But actually, would it feed my value of freedom? And I think the biggest one for me is the answer is no, because somebody else is dictating how I spend my time, what I have to do in my free time in order to be ready to serve those children within my care. And so actually that's how those values have infiltrated me and my business. But I had to know what I was in my core to start with before I could take that to my business.
Interesting, because as you probably guess, I speak to a lot of small business owners and self-employed individuals, and actually there is a common theme in that people have quite often chosen the route of self-employment or their own business because something was incredibly important to them and they weren't able to fulfill that need from being employed, from being PAYE. And for a lot of people, that is about freedom. And I do wonder if, while COVID was a horrific time for a lot of people, actually one of the things in hindsight that it helped people to do is reassess what was important to them and make decisions based on that assessment, and actually to recognize that potentially the things that they thought were normal and almost was such a part of everyday life that no one thought to question them were not as valuable or as important or as necessary as they once thought they were.
I think you're absolutely right. Absolutely. And, you know, even if people were in survival mode over those years, actually coming out of it, that moment of reflection, it's powerful. It is. And you're absolutely right. I think people chose different directions. People decided what was important, what wasn't important. And here we are today. So
interesting. And you've mentioned that family is incredibly important to you. You've mentioned how that is actually one of your key values. As a business owner, you can get pulled in multiple directions all the time, and actually if you're not careful, you end up working all the hours, because why wouldn't you work all the hours? So how do you balance that, your personal responsibilities with your business responsibilities, and what strategies do you have to make sure that balance doesn't tip too far either way?
I think if I had it all sussed, I would let you know, but I don't have it all sussed.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, everyone. I'm like, if you were listening in for that, what I think for me, it's about trial and error. And I think over the years, I know and I recognize that there are going to be busy periods in my business, which are going to take more of me. And that's okay, because they have to be weighed up with the fact that I tend not to work school holidays, just because I work with parents and I work with children, and they don't tend to want to see me during school holidays. So I may work really, really hard for 6 weeks and then I'll have a week off, or I protect days in my diary. So for me, I don't work on a Friday. So I don't see face-to-face clients on a Friday. That is absolutely and completely protected time. Now, if I choose to work on a Friday with some behind the scenes stuff, that is a choice and I am happy to do it. But it is a choice because I've protected my Fridays to be a me day or a get stuff done day, or however it is. So I think I accept that there are ebbs and flows. I accept that I also have to go with where my energy is. You know, I don't want to raise the perimenopause word, but I'm going to, you know, that does play a part as well. And I think you have to, by learning more about myself, I'm able to create balance around what I need for running my own business, but also what my family needs as well. And, I am in a lucky position where my daughter is a bit older now, so she doesn't require quite so much. Well, I was going to say she's a teenager, so there are lots of other things that go along with that, but she doesn't require 24 hours care and to make sure I've got childcare over the holidays and all of those kind of things. So I'm going to use this word in inverted commas. It does become easier as a result of not having to have that sort of mental burden. But then teenagers do bring a whole lot of other stuff with them as well, and that's okay, but it doesn't require me to be physically with them or with her for my entirety of my day or the school holidays. So that does make things easier as well when managing your business and energy levels and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And have you found, because obviously you are a parent and you've also got that educational background, have you found that your personal journey, if you like, influences how you interact with your own customers now that you've got your own business? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, not that I've experimented on my child, because I really haven't, but the tools that I speak to with my clients, the stuff that I do with the young people that I see, I've tried it all out. I've weathered the storm, and I quite often talk to clients about the emotional change cycle, which is, Google it, but it's like an upside down bell curve, or like not a ski slope, sorry, a skateboard ramp. And
Okay.
you go in on one side with the knowledge and the ideas. You've listened to a podcast, you've read a book, you've chatted to your mum, you've heard a tip on morning TV, and you think, great, great, great. And so there you are on your skateboard coming into the skateboard ramp. And then you enter the bottom, which is fondly called the Valley of Despair. Now, I refer to it as a pit of despair, because I think a valley is too big and too vast and so a pit, but you have to sit in the pit of despair to be able to come out the other side informed. Yeah. And, I have sat in the pit of despair. I have come out the other side, done a full circle, come in again, and all the rest of it. And I think that aids me when discussing things with my clients, when saying, what, actually, you have to sometimes sit in that pit more than is comfortable to be able to come out informed and creating a change that you want on the other side. And so I think, yeah, you're right. As a mother, as an educator, there's lots of stuff that I've tried in my own life that I'm now talking about with clients, because I've sat in the pit with them or on my own, to be able to come out informed and ready to help make change with the change cycle. So I quite like the skateboard ramp. You will come out the other side. But what most people do is sit in the pit of despair for not long enough, and then decide that things aren't working, and they reverse out on their skateboard, rather than thinking, okay, I'm going to tweak, I'm going to look at it, I'm going to adapt to change, I'm going to ebb, I'm going to flow, I'm going to be curious, so that they can come out the other side. Most people go backwards and then say things don't work, whereas I've sat there and come out the other side. So,
yeah, and I think, to be honest, I think that probably applies to most aspects of life, doesn't it? Like with as this is a massive sweeping statement, but people want to fix things as quickly as possible. Yeah. So sitting somewhere where it is uncomfortable and just sort of, using your skateboard analogy, rocking backwards and forwards at the bottom of the ramp, actually that goes against human nature
very much
in a lot of ways, because all we want to do is fix it and move on, fix it and move on. So in every aspect, in business, in bringing up children, in everything, spending that time in that feeling uncomfortable and then reflecting on what you've learned as a result of that is actually long-term a beneficial way of dealing with things. Much.
Because, on top of all the other things you learn, it builds resilience.
Yeah.
And, I think actually it's important that we feel, and I think it's important that we acknowledge our emotions and all those kind of things. So I'm not asking people to sweep them under carpets, but actually, as you say, as a process of being uncomfortable, of a process of not latching into instant gratification, you learn so much more about yourself, about your family, about your kids, in my context. But you're right, within friendships, within leadership roles, within school systems, within work context, whatever it is that you're bringing to life, that little change cycle, I say I didn't come up with it, it's some very clever researchers have. I've just added the skateboard. So, but it does apply. And
Yeah.
as you're right, sometimes we actually have to feel a bit uncomfortable to come out the other side grown from the experience.
Yeah, perfect. We're on to our final question already. So the final one is almost a reflection on where you've got to so far and what you would like to achieve. What would you like your legacy to be, either personally, professionally, or a combination of the both? What would you like to leave behind?
Gosh, that's such a good question. And it's one I really reflected on when we were bouncing ideas around for the podcast and all the rest of it. It's like, well, I want my legacy to be. And I think I hinted at it at the beginning. So work-wise, I want to bring about multi-generational change. So we don't have to parent the same way that we were parented. We can raise our children and our young people in many different ways. And I think that ripple effect is huge. You just have to change one person who changes another person, maybe changes the wrong word, who influences another generation and all the rest of it. So I think that's a big one for me in my work. I want to have an impact. I want to help, I want to serve. And so I think that's part of it. I think the other side from a personal point of view is, I want to grow as a person and I love learning. And I think being your own business owner and all the rest of it, you're forced to learn all the time and learn new skills. And I'm quite often swearing at different systems I've got going and that I can't make work, or it's just not my zone of genius, but actually that's me growing. And so I think that's really important. And then I guess the last one for me is around my daughter and, just letting her know that, you can follow a passion, you can be your own boss. You don't have to fit into a box in order to get what you need out of life. And I think, yeah, I'm sure there's probably more legacies that I'm leaving that I'm not even thinking about. But I think those for me are the ones that are leading the way at this moment. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. That was brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Strings to Your Bow. I hope you enjoyed our chat as much as I did. Anisa shared some inspiring stories about how her personal experience shaped her journey, turning challenges into opportunities and valuable lessons into professional success. It's amazing to see how the threads of our personal lives weave into our business achievements. Today's conversation reminds us that the skills and insights we gain from our own journeys aren't just extras. They're the foundation of who we are as professionals. Whether it's building resilience, finding inspiration in everyday moments, or drawing strength from relationships, these experiences help us discover and hone our superpowers. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Share your own stories of personal growth and business success on social media using the hashtag StringsToYourBowPodcast, and your story might just spark inspiration for someone else. And don't forget, there's so much more to come. We've got incredible guests lined up, each with their own unique tales of how personal and professional come together. So make sure you tune in next time as we continue exploring what makes success so multifaceted and unique. Until then, take care and keep adding strings to your bow.